Welcome. Today, we're going to get into some really interesting developments happening in AI. There's a lot of buzz, particularly around something significant that feels like it's coming soon.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense that something big is on the horizon. We've looked at the information out there to, figure out what it all means.
Okay, so maybe let's start with a little bit of the background. I saw Sam Altman was posting on X about simplifying OpenAI's models.
That's right. It sounds like users were finding it a bit tricky, having to choose between different GPT models for different tasks.
Right, like one might be faster, another better at complex stuff. Must have been a bit of a headache.
Exactly. That was the feedback. Faster models, maybe less deep. Deeper models, maybe slower. So users weren't always sure which one was the best fit. Altman himself called it a problem.
And his big idea was getting back to, what was it, magic unified intelligence.
Yeah, that was the phrase he used. That seems to be the ultimate destination.
Sounds ambitious. But what was the first step towards that?
Well, the first real step we saw was GPT 4.5. And interestingly, the internal code name was apparently Orion.
Orion. That name sounds familiar, like from earlier GPT rumors.
It does, yeah. Bit of a callback for those following closely.
So GPT 4.5, was this like the last version using their current methods before GPT-5 changes things up?
Pretty much. It's seen as the peak of their, let's say, established approach before they shift to a new architecture, a new methodology with GPT-5. Kind of the final iteration of that particular line.
Okay. And what did it actually bring to the table? What were the improvements users might have noticed, say, for writing an email or something?
Good question. Well, with 4.5, conversations felt more natural, more fluid. It seemed better at picking up on nuances and prompts, like it understood your intent better.
Okay.
And its knowledge base was wider than GPT-4, so more information to draw on. Plus, it was apparently better at not making things up confidently, fewer hallucinations.
Right, the hallucination problem.
Yeah. So for that email example, it might capture the tone you wanted more accurately, or maybe pull in more relevant current info.
So definitely better, but not quite the unified magic yet.
Huh.
What were its main shortcomings? Why wasn't it the all-in-one solution?
The main thing seems to be the reasoning aspect. It didn't quite have that deliberate step-by-step thinking process that some earlier, maybe more specialized models had shown.
Oh, okay.
It was more about accessing and processing huge amounts of data. Some called it a brute force intellect. Very knowledgeable, but perhaps not as strong on complex problem-solving needing logical steps, like figuring out a tricky tech support issue.
Got it. It knows a lot, but maybe doesn't connect the dots quite as deeply. I also remember something about OpenAI initially calling it not a frontier model. What was that about?
Yeah, that line appeared briefly in some technical info and then disappeared. The thinking is it was probably about managing expectations,
Oh.
signaling that, yes, 4.5 is an upgrade, but the really big leap, the frontier, was still coming with GPT-5.
Which brings us neatly to GPT-5, the one everyone's really focused on. This is supposed to be the one that merges the different strengths, right? The O series and the GPT series.
That's the core idea, unifying them.
So what does unified intelligence actually mean for someone using it day to day?
Well, it should mean a much smoother experience. Imagine one AI that can just handle whatever you throw at it, without you needing to pick a specific mode or model.
Okay.
It should figure out for itself if you need a quick fact, or if it needs to engage in deeper, longer reasoning. Versatility and adaptability, basically, all in one place.
So no more choosing between the fast one and the smart one.
Hopefully not. Whether you're drafting code or writing a poem, GPT-5 is intended to handle it intelligently within the same interaction. Much more streamlined.
And those older O-series models, like O3, known for reasoning, those capabilities are being rolled into this.
That's the plan, according to Altman. Those reasoning strengths won't be a separate thing. They'll be integrated into the core of GPT-5 itself, part of the unified package.
That sounds way more user-friendly. So, the million-dollar question, when do we actually get to see GPT-5? Any realistic timeline?
Well, there's no official date pinned down, but Altman, back in February 2025, suggested a time frame of weeks to months from then.
Okay, so weeks or months from February. That points towards maybe spring, early summer, perhaps?
Potentially, yes. Spring or summer 2025 seems like a reasonable window if everything stays on track.
The classic if, which usually means there's a story there. Has the road to GPT-5 been smooth sailing?
Not entirely, it seems. There were reports, maybe late last year, suggesting some bumps in the road, potential delays, and the costs.
Wow. Costs, how much are we talking?
There was a Wall Street Journal piece mentioning a single large training run could be around $500 million.
Hmm.
Half a billion. And apparently they did at least two big ones like that.
$500 million just to train it once. What were the issues that needed that kind of spending?
Well, the report suggested that those initial massive training runs, they weren't actually delivering the huge jump in performance OpenAI was looking for.
Really?
Yeah, some early versions were only marginally better than GPT-4, which, after spending that kind of money, wasn't the revolutionary leap they needed. So just scaling up bigger and bigger wasn't the whole answer.
Okay, so throwing more compute power at it wasn't enough. What other major hurdles did they hit?
A big one was data, training data. GPT-4 used something like 13 trillion tokens, which is just immense.
Tokens being like words or parts of words, right?
Exactly. So for GPT-5 to be significantly better, it needed even more high-quality data. But they apparently hit a wall where just scraping the public internet wasn't cutting it anymore. They'd kind of used up the easily available stuff.
Right. You run out of new things to learn from the existing web. So how do they tackle that? How do you find more data?
They started looking at different strategies. There was a test training run, codenamed Ericus, back in mid-2023, testing a new architecture. But it was too slow, apparently. Scalability issues. So, back to the drawing board, refine the architecture, and then actively seek out new, unique data sources. They even reportedly hired experts to create new training material, like complex code examples, difficult math problems, that sort of thing.
Wow, actually generating bespoke training data.
Yeah. And then later, maybe mid-2024, they kicked off another huge training effort and even tried injecting more data partway through, realizing the initial set still wasn't diverse enough.
Sounds like a real scramble for the right ingredients, and it wasn't just technical stuff, right? Weren't there some people leaving OpenAI around then too?
Yes, 2024 saw quite a bit of staff movement. Some key people, including well-known names like Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist, and Mira Murati, the CTO, they departed.
That can definitely complicate things during a big push like this.
Absolutely. And even folks outside OpenAI were picking up on the challenges.
Oh yeah, like who?
Well, AI investor Q Lee, for instance, commented publicly that the GPT-5 training hadn't gone as smoothly as hoped. He also sort of poured cold water on some of the really optimistic AGI predictions, suggesting mid-2025 for GPT-5 felt more likely than late 2024.
So, given all that, the cost, the data hunt, the delays, what's actually supposed to make GPT-5 fundamentally different? We talked about 4.5 being brute force. How does GPT-5 move past that?
The key difference is meant to be that improved reasoning. So instead of just relying on massive scale and data recall, like 4.5 leaned towards, GPT-5 aims to properly integrate that broad knowledge with much more sophisticated step-by-step thinking, that chain of thought capability.
The kind of O-series was good at.
Exactly. The goal is to get rid of that trade-off for the user. You shouldn't have to choose between the knowledgeable one and the logical one. GPT-5 is supposed to figure that out internally.
That would be a huge usability win. And the tech underneath. Are we talking a big architectural change?
It definitely sounds like it. No specifics from OpenAI, of course, but there have been strong hints and rumors about things like a mixture of experts, architecture.
Mixture of experts, like
No.
different AI specialists inside.
Sort of, yeah. Imagine different parts of the AI are specialized. One's great at code, another at creative writing, another at data analysis, and the system routes your request to the right expert or combination of experts. Allows for massive scale and specialization.
Interesting.
Plus, OpenAI's CFO hinted the next model could be an order of magnitude bigger than GPT-4 in some way. Parameters, data, computation, something is getting vastly scaled up.
In order of magnitude, that's like 10 times bigger potentially. That's not incremental.
Not at all. That suggests a really significant jump in underlying capability. It points towards this vision of GPT-5 as a true omni-model.
Omni-model, meaning?
Meaning it can handle pretty much anything. Near limitless knowledge, tackling logic, creativity, speed, using tools, all seamlessly from one interface, adapting instantly to whatever you need.
And you mentioned more natural conversations earlier. How does GPT-5 improve that feeling?
The idea is it becomes smarter about how it answers. It decides. Does this need a quick, factual reply, or does it require a more detailed, reasoned explanation? That internal decision-making should make interactions feel more intuitive, less robotic.
What about handling different kinds of information? Text, images.
Yeah.
What's next?
Big steps are expected here in multimodal capabilities. GPT-4 handled text and images. GPT-5 is widely expected to add audio, and maybe even video, as both inputs and outputs.
So you could talk to it, show it a picture, ask for a diagram back.
Potentially, yes. Imagine having a voice chat, then uploading a photo for it to analyze, then maybe getting a visual explanation back, all in one continuous flow.
That really changes the interaction model, and voice specifically.
Voice is almost certainly going to be a core part. ChatGPT already has voice modes. GPT-5 will likely build on that, making it smoother, more integrated, maybe more conversational.
And using external tools,
Yeah.
like browsing the web or checking databases,
Yeah.
the operator mode.
Yeah, the goal seems to be making that much more proactive and seamless. Instead of just waiting for you to say browse the web, GPT-5 might figure out when it needs external info or needs to perform an action and just do it within safety limits, of course.
More like an assistant anticipating needs.
Exactly. And potentially deeper integrations, too. Imagine it connecting to your calendar to schedule things or your project management tools to help organize tasks. Less manual prompting from you.
That sounds incredibly powerful for productivity. What about memory? Will it remember things better across chats?
That's another area expecting improvement. Past attempts at long-term memory in AI have been tricky, but GPT-5 is aiming for more reliable, personalized memory, remembering details you've shared, preferences, context from previous interactions, making it feel more like your assistant over time.
And the custom GPTs, the GPT store, how do they fit in?
They should become even more central, likely powered by the core GPT-5 engine, so you could build your specialized AI helpers, but they'll benefit from the underlying power and versatility of GPT-5. Easier tailoring of AI to very specific needs.
Makes sense. And context window size, that's always a big number people look at.
Yeah, GPT 4.5 already had a massive one. GPT-5 will likely push that even further, maybe matching or beating competitors like Google's Gemini 2.5, which has showcased enormous context windows.
Meaning it can process huge documents or long conversations?
Exactly. More context means more comprehensive understanding and more relevant responses, especially for complex tasks involving lots of information.
I also saw mentions of a tool called Canvas, some kind of collaborative space.
Right. OpenAI introduced Canvas, kind of a digital whiteboard for working with ChatGPT. It's pretty basic now, but the expectation is GPT-5 will supercharge it.
How so?
Think real-time collaboration, maybe features for structuring documents together, interactive project planning, design help, turning it from just a chatbot into more of a collaborative AI partner in a shared workspace.
Okay, this all sounds extremely capable, which inevitably leads to the big question. Is GPT-5 going to be AGI, artificial general intelligence?
Ah, yes, the AGI question. It always comes up. Look, by the standard definition AI that can do any intellectual task a human can. Probably not. It's very unlikely GPT-5 will be true AGI.
Why not?
It'll still make mistakes. It won't understand nuances perfectly. Critically, it won't have consciousness, self-awareness, genuine understanding in the human sense. Even OpenAI people tend to say true AGI is further out.
Okay, so not technically AGI, but how might it feel to use for an everyday person?
That's the interesting part. For many users, it might feel incredibly close. The improved reasoning, the flexibility, the ability to handle so many different tasks seamlessly, it could easily seem like AGI in practice.
Like a super-powered assistant?
Exactly. An incredibly advanced assistant, tutor, researcher, creative partner, blurring the lines in daily use, even if it doesn't meet the strict technical definition of AGI.
So a massive leap, potentially the most versatile AI tool we've seen, changing how we interact with AI, even if it's not the singularity just yet.
Precisely. A very significant advancement with potentially profound impacts.
And of course, OpenAI isn't alone here. Google has Gemini, Anthropic has Claude, there's Grok, open source. How does GPT-5 position OpenAI in that race?
Yeah, the competition is fierce. GPT-5 is clearly OpenAI's answer, their flagship intelligence. It seems designed to be an integration machine connecting with everything, appealing broadly.
And they have the existing user base.
A huge user base with ChatGPT. Plus, their APIs are everywhere. So when GPT-5 lands, it's going to make waves across the whole AI ecosystem, no question.
So bringing it back to the launch, what are realistic expectations? When should people actually expect to get their hands on it?
Well, best advice is probably ignore the hype cycles on social media. Based on Altman's February comments, we're still looking at, months away. Spring or summer 2025 seems plausible.
But delays are possible.
Given the history and the scale of the challenge, yes, further delays wouldn't be shocking. And even when it launches, expect features to roll out gradually. It won't likely be everything all at once on day one.
So manage expectations, be patient, but it does sound like something genuinely significant is coming.
Absolutely. It really could represent a major shift in AI capabilities and how deeply this technology gets woven into our lives.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Really helped cut through the noise and understand what might be coming down the pipe with these AI developments. It feels like we're right on the edge of another big step
It
change.
certainly feels that way. Exciting times, but also important to keep a level head about what's realistic and when.
Definitely. Thanks so much for breaking all that down. We'll absolutely be keeping watch on how this unfolds. See you soon with another one.